I'm getting ready to speak to a woman who has a very empowered voice and influential in the Black community, Angela Rye, who is a political commentator and analyst, and she has her own podcast where she shares a message for Black people around the world. And I'm really excited to sit down and have a conversation with her today while she is in Accra, Ghana. Angela Rye, attorney, political analyst, and a woman of African descent, on this episode of African Woman on the Move. So today I'm here with Angela Rye, an amazing woman who's doing some phenomenal things for Black people around the world. She is inspiring and she continues to use her voice to share a message and just to teach people in our community so many different things, and it's such a pleasure to sit here and talk with her today. She's most known for being a political analyst, and also she has her own podcast where she likes to share a lot of information and teach people and knowledge for our community, especially over the last few years with some of the things that our people have experienced. I think it's wonderful what you're doing. Welcome today. Thank you so much for taking out the time.
It's my pleasure. Ivy's my new favorite person in Ghana.
Oh, I love you. I love you. I love you. It's been so great spending some time with you over the last few days.
Thank you.
And I learned that you were named after Angela Davis.
I was.
How does that feel knowing you were named after such an iconic woman?
Like, one, it's amazing. I was saying that I had the opportunity to meet her just a couple of years ago, or now 3 years ago.
I met her too.
Oh, good.
She came to Ghana. I met her in Ghana.
Oh,
yeah.
I hope she'll come back when I'm here. But she is so powerful and doesn't overpower in any way. And she's brilliant. So she's someone who I've always been like, ooh, those are big shoes to fill. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I would walk in my own path, on my own path and in my own journey, but still try to ensure that the work that I do complements so much of the greatness and the amazing ways in which she's covered and looked out for, protected, and advocated for our community throughout the diaspora, yeah.
And you're doing that. You are really doing that. This is your first trip to Ghana.
Yes, to the continent, period.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people who don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And so what was it that made you feel like it was necessary for you to come at this time?
Mm-hmm. I kept waiting for the perfect opportunity, and we know as human beings on this planet, there's no such thing. But I really wanted, when I first came to Africa, I wanted to be like this family journey where we all go together. And my parents and I talked about 2019, and we talked about it so late that when I looked at tickets, it was like $10,000
went
per.
Up so high.
Crazy. So I was like, I love you guys. I can't do this right now. So this time, and I think, you just brought up COVID, after living through a pandemic, through quarantine, and seeing so many people who we know intimately and folks who we know from afar lose people, you just are like tomorrow's not promised. And so if I have an opportunity, I'm going to take it. And so Queen Afua and I did her book release with the press, and right after that, Zoom, again, another way in which COVID has impacted us, you do a book launch with reporters on Zoom. Right? So we got off that Zoom, got on the phone, and we were talking, and she was telling me she was going to do a 2-week silent retreat after she went to Ghana. And I was like, when are you going to Ghana? And she was like in a week and a half. And I was like, I want to go. And she was like, come. I was like, are you serious? So that was it. And I was like, I'm going. I told my team, I was like, I'm about to go on a trip for 10 days. They were like, well, we have so much going on. I was like, I need to do this. I'm supposed to be writing a book on freedom. How can I write a book on freedom? And I haven't even done this for myself. So I'm so glad I did.
I'm glad you did too.
Yes.
Getting to meet you is such an honor as well.
Thank you.
And seeing how you're experiencing being here. I know that it's very emotional for a lot of people from the African American community and the Caribbean community, South American community. Having been working on the Year of Return and now Beyond the Return, I've met so many people and heard so many stories and seen the emotion. You went to the Cape Coast slave dungeons.
Yes.
I know they call it Cape Coast Castle, but dungeons is really
That's
important
accurate.
to stress.
Yes.
What was your feeling when you first walked in and hearing the tour guide and Rabbi Kohen tell the stories about what people experienced there?
Well, first, I want to say I'm so glad that you were there with us on this journey for a lot of reasons. You know, it's almost since the first night, it's been like, Ivy and I must have known each other in another life. Like, it's, you know, you've just been right there. And I'm so thankful because you've been not just a rock, but someone who was an emotional support and something that was truly trying for, I think, our whole group. But I had so much anxiety going into that day because I know what I've read about, I know what I've seen in movies and documentaries. Really consider myself a student of the Middle Passage and slavery and the treatment of enslaved people in America and beyond. And so I was worried, like, how am I going to fall out? Like, what am I going to do? And I think I was pretty close to falling out. But the first room that we went in at the slave dungeons was like the room where they were trying to basically say, if you act out, if you do anything to rebel, you will die. And they talked about how the plate that was over the door used to be skull and bones, like an actual human skull and bones, but they replaced it to just say what the room was. Going in that room, there was so much grief and pain. And it was important to me that I connected in some way with the ancestors. So even touching the wall, my hand was tingling. And I was explaining that to Queen Esther, who's on this trip with us. And she said, the walls are vibrating, right, from the ancestors. And what we know is we certainly pass on from this life, but they're forever with us. We literally carry them in our bodies. And so that vibration is our connection to who came before us, who come after us. And it was powerful and palpable. Like, I was just crying. And part of what I was saying is, I'm so sorry you had to endure this. You didn't deserve this. And I promise that I'm going to do everything I can to make you proud in this life and to live out my very best life. Because I know that's all they want. That we continue to fight for our freedom and liberation in all the ways, spiritually, economically, historically, meaning that what's happened to us doesn't continue to hold us back in ways that just perpetuate the cycle. So yeah, I feel like I can keep going, but
I mean, it is something that, because the emotion is so deep, of course you can keep talking and expressing everything that you felt. So I understand that, you know, and for me, I have been there so many times because so many people, when they come and visit, you know, we take them there. And but me personally, being a person who, I was born in Ghana, raised in Canada, I lived in the US for a short period of time, I still have that emotional feeling and connection because I understand that some of those people who were captured and taken were also people who were, you know, potentially my relatives who got split up.
That's right.
You know, and everything that happened as a result has resulted in how we are treated as Black people around the world. And it is emotional, you do feel it. Like, the first time I went in was more than 20 years ago. And they still had the shackles in there, actually, when I was there the first time. And when I saw it, and it was just like, just everything in me just was like sunk, if that makes any sense. And for me, I didn't feel it in my hands, I felt it in my feet.
Wow.
That's where I felt it, was in my feet, you know, walking and knowing that people were standing there and, you know, maybe even fell and collapsed because they were sick and they were tired, and just thinking about all the things they had to endure. So it's definitely a conversation that's a never-ending one. So, and it's very important. Now that you've experienced it, what would you tell people back home about visiting there, that if it's necessary or not? Because I've heard some people say, oh, I don't need to go back there, it's the past, let's just move on. Do you think that people need to continue going to visit, or do we need to move on?
I don't think we need to move on. I think if there was a move on recommendation, I'd have it is that we don't let the trauma of the past hold us back internally by holding on to like the rage and the anger. I think there's a difference between rage and anger and righteous anger, like the kind that leads you to pursue justice and what's fair and equitable. But I would heavily discourage people who say, I don't need to go, to stop saying that. I would encourage them to come because like I said, I know like my parents ensured that I knew my history and then I had my own passion for it. I didn't know the way that I intimately know now after being there. It's a completely different experience. And I actually think it's not just for Black people to go and see. I really think that white folks should go do this, that Latinx folks should go do this, that folks indigenous to different parts of, the world on different continents should come do this. Just the same way that we encourage people to go and understand things about the Holocaust, right? So if we're really going to treat people of color as fully human, then I want you to understand that human experience, even if it's painful. I know for me, there are certain things in my life where pain comes up and I want to avoid it. But you avoiding it doesn't make it disappear, right? And so I think that's where we really have an opportunity to grow into, lean into the pain, to the sorrow of what it was, so that you can appreciate where you came from and how strong we are and go forward with that strength. I think about people who may have been so depressed they consider taking their own lives. And when you go through something like that, I don't think that it would ever cross your mind again. Yeah. And it's not to diminish depression and the chemical imbalances people may have, but I really think there's something about that renews your strength. As much as I hate when people say we're superhuman or subhuman, anything other than human, I'm like, we kind of are superhuman. Like, that's some incredible strength.
Yeah. And you being here is survival. Your ancestors were strong and survived, and that's why you're still here. Otherwise,
and you too. Like the thing that I think is remarkable, I'm gonna try not to cry, but I feel it like right. But what has been remarkable about the experience is you being here and open in the way that you are, even about teaching the young girls who came that you basically called forth and they appeared, and got to learn that experience too. The strength that is in our ability to reunite.
You're making my eyes laugh too.
Like, my eyes are sweating. It's cold in here. But no, and it's been like that from the first day. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I did not mean to start crying.
You're welcome. Take your time.
But thank you, because they would say, Ivy, and you know this, both on the African American side and people here, that this isn't possible. You know that our experiences are too different, but they're not.
They're not.
And
They're
you
not.
get it in ways
we
that
have to just communicate.
Yeah.
Teach and grow with each other.
This is not even like one of those dab cries. It's like
I know, and there's no tissue around for me.
It's okay.
No
They'll dry up.
Let me shift the energy.
Yeah.
People come and they have that experience, but there's also other experiences people have in Ghana as well. You've gotten an opportunity to go around and see some land and the beach. Were you one of the people who slept on the beach? We went to
Yes.
We went to Elmina.
Yes.
Had some stayed for the night. Had some breakfast, lunch, whatever. But you guys slept on the beach. I've never done that before. I've always thought about it, but I've never done it before.
You should have come with us to
I didn't know you guys were doing
We
that.
didn't know either. We didn't know either. We were just like, oh my God, it was it's this beautiful ocean, but also we know the trouble in that water. And so to be able to go back to choose to lay on the beach and to choose to make something different of the experience is to say we honor what's happened here, but we also want to tell you like we're back home. So it was beautiful watching the sunrise, and we were chasing like the crabs and then running from them when they came back. It was beautiful.
You know who else has done a night on the beach? I don't know if I don't remember if they slept on the beach, but the Full Circle Festival, Boris Kojo, Bozoma St. John, they came and they brought a group of people from the U.S. They also had a sunrise at the beach for New Year's Day. Like New Year's Eve into New Year's Day.
Okay.
They did a sunrise thing because they said the same thing. It was like a welcoming, like a, there was something different about seeing the sunrise being on the continent.
Yeah.
So I have to do it.
You do. You do. When I come back, we're going.
Definitely, definitely. So now that you've been here and you're here with Queen Afua,
Yes.
and she is all about wellness and healing, how did you connect with her to begin with?
Yes. Well, I'm a big fan of Dr. Sebi and other folks, who are natural healers in our community. One, because they're taking it back to what was. It's not some like woo-hoo, cuckoo kind of situation. It's like this is our roots, literally. And so Queen Afua says that Dr. Sebi's like her brother. So I kind of just stumbled upon her profile, reading up stuff. And like after quarantine started, I was eating all this comfort food and cooking all this stuff. And forget jeans, my stretch pants were like, girl, where and how? The stretch pants were like, it's not happening. So I was like, I need to do like a detox and a purge and reset. And so I was reading about her detox. And so I DM'd her because I was like, actually, I'm not the only one going through this. Let me have her on the podcast. So I DM'd her and I didn't hear back on Instagram for some time, but I was talking to Erica Badu about like what I needed to cleanse and purge. And she was like talking about Queen Afua's detox. I was like, oh my God, I just DM'd her. But I was like, can you connect me? She said, sure. That same day, Queen's team DM'd back. So Erica didn't even have to do it.
Okay.
But I was like, you spoke her up, so now we're good. And it's been like, she's been like a mom to me ever since. And she has this tremendous heart to heal our people, to get us right, to help us understand what we ingest. We can't do what everybody else does. And when we do, there's a different kind of impact it has on our physical body, really our emotional bodies and our spiritual bodies. One thing that I loved from the detox and the cleanse and like learning to take time for my prayer and meditation time in the morning based on what she recommends in Sacred Woman, I felt like for the first time, my spirit and my body were really coexisting. I felt, for whatever reason, I've always felt like my spirit was kind of hovering around here, but it was like, it's grounded. I'm at home within myself. And it just felt good. It's like, okay, I feel like I'm in flow. Like, let's go. So I joke all the time. I'm like, I'm a sage burning Christian with a medicine woman, great grandmother. And so, it just is what it is. Yeah. And I'm good with that.
Yeah.
It works for me.
And it's interesting you say that, because in Ghana there's a lot of people who are there doing a lot of the traditional herbs and traditional healing. So there's that combination here as well. And I think that personally, that contributes a lot to why the pandemic hasn't necessarily hit as badly in Ghana and other African countries, because the way that people eat generally is healthier than a lot of people outside of the continent with a lot of processed foods. Although processed foods are coming to Ghana as well now, there's still a lot of the natural herbal, like it's normal for a person to say they take moringa or they have neem, like it's just a normal thing.
My dad's been taking moringa for 5 years or 6 years and has been like a moringa evangelist, and you need to take this, you need to, moringa aloe you need to take this. Like he is not playing. So I grew up around that. We used to joke, like around the 2nd, 3rd grade, my dad used to drink like this brown concoction, and we used to call it gorilla juice because it was that bad, right? But we've always been like that. So it was fine. It felt like a natural transition. And even my mom was like, well, send me some of this stuff and send me her book, and I want to, so we're into it.
That's good. That's good. Being a woman, a powerful woman in the Black community, what advice would you give to young girls coming up as to how they can take care of themselves, how they can move forward? Because a lot of young girls I've seen, they're just kind of going through life. They don't have that focus and that vision and that drive. And I think women like you could, give some leadership and some guidance as to what they could do, whether it's girls here on the continent or girls in the African American community.
I think the first thing I would say is don't believe that you have to only do one thing, right? If there's something that you're interested in or some things you're interested in, really pursue those things. Surround yourself with people who have goals and a moral compass and care about their people, and make sure that that's your soul tribe, because when you feel like doing some ridiculousness, they're gonna be like, no, we're over here. because it doesn't just focus you in your do, it focuses in your be and who you are. I think in addition to that, I brought up the thing about doing multiple things because people used to always say you can't be a jack of all trades, you have to be a master of something.
Yeah, people said that a lot.
I hated it. I hated it because I was like, I like a lot of different stuff. I want to be able to try a lot of different things. And so even when Michelle Obama talked about folks asking kids what they want to be when they grow up, I relate to that a lot because if that's the case, I've had several iterations and they've all contributed to my ability to relate to people or my ability to connect folks so they can go do dope things together or whatever else. And I think that's what life is about, experiences. I read something the other day that talked about the 3 regrets people have when they know they're going to die, like the end of life. And one of them was not like regretting that they didn't do this thing, they didn't love hard enough, they didn't take that trip, they didn't try that career. So it really is about trying the things. It doesn't mean you have to lack discipline, but it's like give yourself the space to try.
Yeah, I like that. Give yourself the space to try. I'm going to say that to young girls now.
Yay,
Quoting
let's do it.
Miss Angela Rye. Thank you so much, Angela.
Thank
I
you,
appreciate the time.
Ivy.
I'm like, this is like my new friend.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
For life.
Thank
Sister.
you. Sisterhood matters.
Yes.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. Thank you so much.
Love you. Thank you.
Too. Bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode of African Woman on the Move, where I share stories of women from the African diaspora as well as the continent of Africa. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.